I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and my background. Thank you, Sonia, for giving me this opportunity to speak here. I have varied background. I'm a Canadian of Indian origin, and I've been here in Canada now for nearly 5 years. So it's been a good journey, and I've learned a lot myself. I'm basically a healthcare professional. I'm a dental surgeon. I was a dentist back home in India, and but after about 2 years of practice, I got into management. I did my MBA. I went to the UK. I did my MBA, and after that, I was always in hospital and healthcare related industries, but not on the clinical side. I was on the management side, and I really liked human resources management. So I was working in HR. I have lived and studied and worked in India and the UK, in the Middle East, particularly in Abu Dhabi, and in Canada as well. So I have sort of worked with people with from different cultures and different backgrounds. Here in Canada, for the last 4 years, I've been teaching. I teach in two colleges, St. Clair's College. I teach in their Acumen campus in Toronto, where I teach human resources management. I'm also a CHRP, and I'm a registered member with the HRPA here in Ontario. So I teach human resources management, business communication, and culture. I also teach in CIMT College. I'm an adjunct professor there, and I teach dental office management because of my dental background. So it's a little bit about me. I have been a TRIAC mentor now for not very long, less than a year. And before that, I was a mentor with the Sherry Blair Foundation in the UK. So TRIAC, as you know, we mentor new immigrants to Canada. And that's how I got this opportunity here to speak on mentoring for access. Now, I've spoken earlier about mentoring from the mentor's perspective and what a mentor should do to facilitate a good mentoring partnership. But Sonia asked me to speak from the mentee's perspective. So that's a little different. But I have been both a mentor and a mentee. I continue to be a mentee. I have mentors who have taught me a lot. So I think I can give you a perspective from both sides. So I'm going to start my slideshow here. And I'm going to turn off the video. Okay, so mentoring. A lot of people, they ask me about mentoring, and there's a little confusion between mentoring and coaching and training. Mentoring is a little different from coaching. Coaching is more formalized, training is more formalized, and it's for developing particular skills, whereas mentoring is more development based. It tries to develop you on a holistic level. So I like this definition of mentoring. Mentoring literature started becoming more prominent in management journals in the 80s. One of the earliest pioneers of mentoring was Kathy Cram, who's a professor emeritus in Boston University now. One of her definitions of mentoring was that it is a developmental based relationship between a mentor and a protege. And the protege is developed in terms of career, and he also receives psychological support. That's one of the earliest definitions of mentoring that we have in the literature. But I like this definition by Bozeman and Feeney. It's more comprehensive. So mentoring is a process for the informal transmission of knowledge, social capital, and psychosocial support. So we'll see what those terms mean in the next slides. And it's very important that mentoring should be perceived as necessary by the recipient. So the recipient is the mentee, right? You as a mentee should feel that you need mentoring. It's very important for a mentee to believe that he needs to be mentored. If you do not perceive yourself as needing the mentoring, then you are not likely to gain much out of the relationship, right? So the recipient has to perceive that he needs mentoring uh, in relation to your work, your career, your professional development. Usually it entails informal communication, face-to-face communication. Of course, with the pandemic now, it's pretty unprecedented. So we're doing a lot of online mentoring, but usually it's face-to-face over a sustained period of time, and it's between a person who's perceived to have greater relevant knowledge or experience, that is a mentor, and the person who's perceived to have less knowledge and experience, that is a protege, right? So mentoring does not have to be in a hierarchy. It's not necessary that the employer or the manager has to mentor the employee or the team member. It can also be peer-to-peer mentoring. The only thing is that one person has got more knowledge and experience in a particular domain, and the mentee has got less knowledge and experience. So I spoke about two terms, social capital and psychosocial support. So the mentee receives knowledge, social capital, and psychosocial support from the mentor. So when I say social capital, I'm talking more about socialization. There should be a social cohesiveness or a bond between the mentee and the mentor. That's very important. And that's one of the primary differences between mentoring and training, right? For a training, you don't really have to be friends with the trainer. But for a mentoring partnership, there has to be friendship. You have to have a social bonding in a mentoring partnership. And it's also important to have a shared sense of identity, shared norms and values. And preferably, it's always good to have a mentor and mentee from the same culture, the same worldview. That's why most organizations, they match the mentee with the mentor, and they try to put people together who have the same background, obviously the same qualifications and experience, but also the same cultural background and worldview. And that's kind of, it makes it easier, it facilitates social bonding. And the mentor also provides psychosocial support to the mentee. So that could be counseling them, handling any psychological distress that they might be having, and providing them with solutions. So as with counseling, both counseling and mentoring have one thing in common, and that is the mentor is not supposed to have all the answers. Just as in counseling, the counselor is not supposed to just give you all the answers. He's not supposed to give you advice. Yes, we do give advice, but counseling, as with mentoring, is about asking the right questions of the mentee so that the person gains insight into his own problems and helping the person solve his own problems rather than just spouting advice. A mentee focused approach or a counselee focused approach would be allowing the protege to gain insight into their own issues and helping them solve their own issues rather than just giving them all the answers. Right? Again, I wanted to specify about the differences between mentoring and coaching. I've already gone through this, but again, mentoring is more informal. Yes, we do have formalized mentoring partnerships like with TRIAC, or you might have mentoring partnerships at your workplace, but largely it is informal, whereas coaching and training is more formal and structured. Mentoring is usually voluntary. Socialization and forming social bonds is vital, as I just told you. Mentoring is more development driven and holistic, whereas coaching is performance driven to help a person gain a particular skill. Mentors usually work from personal experience, whereas coaches, they have expertise and specialized knowledge in certain areas. So what are the traits of the ideal mentor and mentee? I know I'm supposed to talk from the mentee's perspective, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about how an ideal mentor should be so that you can make sure that you get yourself a good mentor, right? A mentor should be open-minded. You don't want to be in a mentoring partnership with somebody who is judgmental, and who's stereotyping you or putting you into a particular bracket. A mentor should be an active listener and open to learning. Because as I told you, a mentoring partnership, it's not just about giving advice and passing on knowledge. It is also about listening. So a mentor should be someone who listens to what the mentee says, listens to his needs, and then helps him out with his problems. A mentor has to be empathetic. He should, of course, be passionate about mentoring. I know that at least in TRIAC, they have a program where former mentees then turn mentor themselves, right? So that's a really nice way to give back. When you have been a mentee and you have benefited from a mentoring relationship, you can always become a mentor later on to somebody else to give back. And for that, you need to be passionate about mentoring, collaborative, right? Okay, so getting more into what makes you a good mentee, right? I'm gonna go on to the next slide here. It's very important to build up a good rapport and establish a relationship before asking someone to be a mentor. Often I get emails from people. I have a consulting business where I mentor people, new immigrants or people who would like to move to Canada, students. So I get a lot of emails, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn from people who just say, hi, can you take a look at my profile? Or can you just go through my resume and help me out here? I know that other consultants get similar emails as well. And usually we tend to ignore these, right? It's not polite to just message someone and ask them for a favor. Uh, you need to build a relationship first. It's really important that you build rapport with the person whom you would like to have as your mentor. You know, just speak to them, connect with them, ask them how they're doing, you know, just talk to them a little bit and then get into what you would like from them. We don't really like people messaging us with, hey, can you do this for me? When you don't know the person at all, right? Never demand jobs or favors or referrals from people you don't know. People do that a lot. It's usually here in Canada, it's very important to build a relationship first before you start networking with that person and asking them to give you a referral or asking them to recommend you for a job. Referrals in Canada are very, very important. All jobs ask for a referral and they faithfully follow up and they check up with the people who refer you. And also when you're going into university, they check up on your referrals. It's not that important in Asian countries. We don't do a lot of referral checks. We don't give a lot of importance to references, but here in Canada, references are very important. So if somebody is referring you, that means that they have sort of put their seal of approval on your character and on your work. So a person here would not want to refer you unless they know you well and unless they have actually seen your work. I also get requests for referrals from students. I teach a lot of students every semester, And sometimes students, international students, they don't understand how it works. And they ask for a referral, even if the student has not been doing very well academically in class. So in that case, I usually tell them that I cannot give them a reference. And sometimes they find it hard to understand why I refuse, because it might be more of a common practice in a country like India, for instance, to get a reference from a professor just because you've studied under the person. But here, unless a student has done a good job and unless he's been academically strong, we prefer not to give references, because then we get calls from the employer asking us about the student, and then if he does not perform well at his workplace, then that's going to reflect badly on the person who gives a reference. So do not demand for referrals, do not demand for jobs, right? Do not ask personal questions, it's very important. Do not ask about that person's family, religion, political affiliations, or salary. Yes, as you develop a relationship with a person, as they become more comfortable with you, mentoring is largely an informal relationship. They would start opening up to you. Okay, and there might be a time in the future when you feel more comfortable with that person, and the mentor feels comfortable with you, and they might give you more personal details about their life. But generally here, Canadians do not discuss a lot of personal details, especially salary and benefits that you get in an organization. It's like a big no-no, so never ask those questions. Do not tell a potential mentor that you will pay him or her for a referral. That does not work as well, and that's a big no-no again. I know that in Asian cultures, at least, it is common practice to maybe give a gift to someone and ask for a referral, but it does not work that way here. And you might come across as rude or unethical if you do that. You need to understand the value of the mentor's time and effort. Remember that this person is doing you a favor, right? When people agree to be a mentor, they are volunteering their time, they are volunteering their efforts. They don't have to do it. So be mindful of the person's time and effort. Canadians value punctuality. So if there is a meeting, you need to be there on time, ahead of time, even. And if you're not going to be there, if you cannot make it, always let them know. Let them know beforehand so that they can, use that time for something else. You need to be really clear about your objectives in the mentoring partnership. I'm going to take you through a model called the GROW model of mentoring. It's something that I use myself, and a lot of mentors and coaches use that model for a mentoring partnership to try to understand and set objectives together. It's very important for the mentor and the mentee to work together to set objectives before the partnership begins. We'll talk a little bit more about that. You need to also be willing to accept input and criticism. It's not always easy. And sometimes the mentees that we work with are immigrants who come from other countries, and they have a significant amount of experience. They have degrees from really good universities, and you've been in very senior positions in your own countries. But when you come to Canada, again, this is a new job market, it's a new country, a new culture, and you might find yourself starting at the bottom all over again. And that's not easy for anybody. I can tell you from personal experience, it is really hard when you have to start again from scratch, but you have to be open to learning, and you have to try to understand that this is a new country, and you cannot start off at the same level from where you left off from your home country. So if the mentor gives you advice or positive criticism, try to be willing and open to take it in and be open to learning and change. I wanted to talk a little bit about Canadian cultural norms because I find that many of the people who contact me for mentoring, whether they are new immigrants or students, international students, they do not really understand some of the cultural cues and norms that are prevalent here in Canada, and then they tend to make mistakes. If you are familiar with Hofstede's cultural framework, some of you might be familiar with Hofstede's framework. If not, you can maybe Google it and find out more about it. Gert Hofstede was a sociologist who created a framework of cultures. So according to Hofstede's framework, every country in the world can be evaluated on its culture based on certain criteria that Hofstede created. It's very interesting if you go through it. If you go to Hofstede's website, you'd find a tool there, which is a free tool that you can use to compare different countries. So you can maybe try comparing Canada with your home country, and you'd be able to see the cultural differences between the two countries. So going by Hofstede's criteria, Canadian culture is very egalitarian, and there's a lack of overt class or status distinctions here. The Canadians like to have an equal society. They like to have a society without racism, without discrimination, not saying that Canadian society is perfect. You are going to encounter negative people, but by and large, Canadians value egalitarianism and they try to treat everybody equally. Canada has a low power distance. What that means is that Canadians do not prefer to have people in authority over them. So in a workplace, for instance, if you're working in a Canadian organization, you would be calling your manager by his first name. Even in college or university, you would be addressing your professors by their first names, and they prefer it that way. They would not prefer you to call them sir or ma'am. And in fact, you might actually offend people by calling them sir or ma'am, because when you say sir or ma'am, then it's like the person would be considered a senior citizen and they don't want to be called old. They would find it rude for you to call them old. So do not address anyone as sir or ma'am. You can say Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, but use first names. So low power distance, and there's a high level of interdependence usually in Canadian organizations. There are hierarchies, but the hierarchy is mostly for convenience. People usually are not promoted based on seniority. They are promoted based on how well they do their job, right? So lower power distance here in Canada. Canadians also value independence and self-reliance. So Canadian society is a very individualistic society. Like the United States, they value independence. They don't give a lot of importance to your family, your ancestry, or where you're coming from. I know that this is very different from traditional Asian and African cultures where family is given a lot of importance. All right, you can always go and introduce yourself as the son or daughter of so and so, and that's given a lot of importance. But here in Canada, they value you for you. So they value independence and they value what you have achieved for yourself, not what your parents have achieved or what your family name is about. Right? Canadian culture is moderately masculine. What that means is that masculine societies tend to value achievement and success, as opposed to feminine societies that value spirituality and relationships, right? We are not as masculine as the United States, our neighbors in the South, but Canadians are moderately masculine. They do value achievement and success. but they also value leisure time. So having a good work-life balance and spending time with family is very important here in Canada. Canadians are pretty accepting of uncertainty. So they're open to new ideas. They're open to new immigrants coming in. And you do see that in the way how the Canadian government is quite encouraging of new immigrants coming into the country. And they try to help new immigrants get assimilated into Canadian society, right? So we're accepting of uncertainty. We are always encouraging of people's self-expression, right? We always want people to express themselves in their own ways. And Canadian society is also pretty normative in thinking. What that means is that they value truth, they value directness, and they value truth. So normative societies give a lot of importance to morality and absolute truth, right? Uh, Moral and immoral behavior is very clear cut. They have pretty clear rules about things. They're also respectful of tradition. So these are things that you need to keep in mind when you think about a Canadian. So a Canadian would be someone who values you for you. So you need to show that you are good at what you say you're good at. Okay, doesn't matter where you come from or who your parents are or what your family is about. You have to give importance to rules. You have to give importance to Canadian policies and workplace rules, right? You also need to value leisure time, you need to value friendships, and you need to value family time. Canadians appreciate people who are ambitious and who want to achieve, but not at the cost of everything else, right? So just a few Canadian cultural norms for you to take in. Canadian culture is also a very low context culture. When it comes to communication, some of you might be familiar with this, low context and high context cultures, right? A high context culture gives more importance to non-verbal communication and body language, whereas low context cultures value direct, explicit communication. Canadians always like it when you're upfront with them, when you're direct, okay, but not be too direct about the things that we just discussed. You cannot ask them direct questions about their personal life and things like that, but you can be direct about what you're expecting out of your mentoring partnership, what you're expecting out of your career here in Canada. They like you to be direct with them, and that gives them an idea of what you're looking for in the relationship. Right? Canadians are also very community oriented. We believe in the common good. That's why you find that almost everybody volunteer. Kids are expected to volunteer from the school level, from high school. It's not that people don't volunteer in other countries, but a lot of importance is placed on volunteering and doing something for society, for the environment, for the less fortunate here. Canada also values multiculturalism and diversity. So multiculturalism, some of you might be familiar with it. We have two models of multiculturalism. One is the melting pot and the other is the mosaic. So the melting pot type of multiculturalism, what the Americans have in the United States, is where they expect all immigrants, different cultures to come in and melt into the common pot of American culture. But in Canada, we have the mosaic type of multiculturalism. And that means you are expected to enjoy your own culture and spread and express your own culture and live at peace and live respectfully with the other cultures here in Canada, right? The Canadian national anthem, I think it's probably the only national anthem that you would hear being sung in different languages. I don't know if any other anthem in the world is like that, but you can hear renditions of the Canadian national anthem in Tamil, in Mandarin, in Punjabi, and in different languages. So, you know, that's how much they value multiculturalism, and that's how much they value the cultures and experiences that new immigrants bring into the country. Canadians are always very politically correct when discussing race and sexuality. I know that we have a tendency in the Asian cultures, whenever we meet a new person, we like to ask them where they are from, right? You tend to ask them, so which country are you from? And if somebody tells you, oh, I'm from this country, you say, oh, which state are you from? You know, we are very curious to know more about the person's background, their family. So again, keep in mind that Canadian culture is very individualistic. They don't care about your background, about your family, and it would be considered rude to ask someone about his nationality or where he's from. Any reference to race would be considered very inappropriate. So, of course, obviously, as you get to know a person better, as you talk more to a person, you find out that, you know, they originated from a particular country. But by and large, don't ask that question until you really get to know a person better and they're willing to volunteer the information themselves. With sexuality as well, with the LGBTQIA community here in Canada. Canadians are very tolerant of people from different sexuality and you know, different nationalities. There is no discrimination here, and everybody is treated equally. So be mindful of pronouns. Sometimes people are particular about being addressed by certain pronouns. So be mindful of that. Also be mindful of a person's personal space. In Canada, personal space is given a lot of importance, so do not stand too close to another person. So the general rule of thumb would be at least an arm's length, right? You need to stand at least an arm's length away from a person when you're talking. An arm's length to about 4 feet away is the ideal rule of space. I'm not talking about the current time. Of course, now with social distancing, we have to stand really far off from each other. But even otherwise, be mindful of someone's personal space. Do not use strong perfumes or deodorants that would be considered rude. Many organizations are fragrance-free or scent-free environments. So they advise you not to wear strong perfumes because people could have allergies. So be mindful of that. There are also subtle differences between Anglophones and Francophones. So far, I've been talking to you about Anglophones or the English-speaking Canadians, but for Francophones, there could be a few cultural differences. Francophones tend to be more formal, and they prefer hierarchies. So they come from more of a European culture. So they tend to be formal, more hierarchical, and generally more emotionally expressive. Anglophones are less expressive emotionally, whereas Francophones tend to be more emotionally expressive. So some of the negative effects of mentoring that you as a mentee need to be aware of and needs to be mindful of. As with any relationship, you can be exposed to abuse and tyranny in a mentoring relationship as well. You know, you could have the misfortune to be paired with a person who is dominant and controlling, and there could be a mentor who does not allow you to grow and gain independence and move away from the mentoring partnerships. That's something that you need to be mindful of. There are other forms of abuse in mentoring relationships as well. Neglect is one. There's not meeting with a mentee regularly, not providing psychosocial support, or expressing subtle racism, polite racism, or just being rude and not being there for the mentor, being there for the mentee when he needs it. It's neglect. Deception is when you have someone misrepresenting credentials, giving you unrealistic expectations, promising the mentee that you can get the person a job, maybe asking the mentee to pay money, promising them things that you really cannot promise. Incompetence. There could be mentors who lack knowledge. Of course, a mentor cannot be expected to know everything about your particular industry or about your particular situation that you're facing. However, when they don't know about it and they don't have the knowledge to help you, they should admit that they have a deficiency in that knowledge area. They should admit that and refer you as a mentee to somebody else. But if the mentor is incompetent and is still not letting you get out of the mentoring partnership and it's providing you advice that is incorrect, then that becomes a form of abuse as well. And of course, sexual harassment could be another problem in the mentoring relationship. So these are just things that you need to be mindful of as a mentee. Okay, and finally, just want to take you through the GROW model. So I told you earlier, it's very important for a mentor and mentee to set clear objectives for the mentoring partnership. So GROW stands for goal, reality, options, and will. So goal is what you want to gain out of the partnership. Are you trying to just make friends, build a network here in Canada? Are you looking to meet people who can help you get a job or get ahead in your career? Are you looking for someone to counsel you, provide you with psychosocial support? Are you just looking for friends? Okay. You need to be very clear about your goals and discuss them with your mentor. Reality is your current situation. Whatever problems you might be in now, you're a new immigrant to Canada, you don't know anybody, you don't know how to get ahead in your particular industry or area of expertise. That is your current situation, reality. And then the options, which the mentor may not just be spouting advice at you. As I told you, mentoring is more about asking you the right questions so that you get insight into your own deficiencies and giving you options to help you sort out your own problems, right? So the mentor would be giving you options on how to deal with your own issues rather than just lecturing at you. And finally, the way forward. What is the best option for you? And what is the way forward for you to gain more knowledge or expertise in your particular domain till you don't need the mentor anymore, until you can end the mentoring relationship. So just some of the questions that you need to ask according to the GROW model. For instance, what do you want to achieve from this particular mentoring session, right? What is your goal for the next month? Where do you see yourself in the next month or the next quarter or the next year? And what you're expecting from the mentor to help you achieve your goals? And what would you like to happen with your career? What would you like to happen with your studies, whatever? What do you want to achieve, accomplish? What outcome do you think would be ideal? What do you want to change about yourself, right? Why are you hoping to achieve this goal? What benefits would you get from achieving this goal? So these questions are not really, you can sort of pick and choose from it based on your needs. The reality, your current situation, right? Again, things that you need to ask yourself and things that you need to discuss with your mentor, or how bad your current situation is. Be honest with them. If you're not making any headway at all in terms of your career, if you're not able to get a job, I mean, you don't have to be ashamed, right? In a mentoring partnership, uh, things are supposed to be kept confidential between you and your mentor, and a good mentor would honor your confidentiality. And there's nothing to be ashamed of in telling someone that, you know, this is not going anywhere. I don't know what to do. I'm completely lost. A lot of new immigrants do feel very lost when they come to Canada. And it's okay. I mean, you might have been in a very senior position in your home country. You might have been a very successful person there, but you can still feel lost here in the Canadian workplace, in the Canadian landscape. And that's okay. You don't have to feel ashamed of it. And it does not mean that you do not have the skills or the intelligence to make it here. It's just that this is a different country and it's a different culture, and you just have to get used to it, right? So be honest with your mentor. Tell them how serious your current situation is, what steps you've taken so far towards your goal, what you have already tried and failed at, what actions you're currently doing now, what are your challenges that you're facing now, right? So all of that has to be discussed in the reality stage, and then work out on the options. Again, this is not just advice or lecturing from the mentor. As a mentee, you need to ask questions too. You need to keep the mentor on his toes, right? And you need to ask questions, and you need to push ahead towards your goal. You cannot expect the mentor to spoon feed you and you know, to just give you everything that you need. You need to work alongside them to see which options are best suited for you in your situation, and see how it's working for you. If it is not working, go back to your mentor and ask them if you can, if there's anything else that you can do. Okay, is there any other avenue for you to get a job? You've tried recruitment agencies, you've tried LinkedIn, you've tried Indeed, none of it is working, but is there any other way that you can try, right? And finally, the will or the way forward. So which option do you feel ready to act on? Which do you think you can do? And what resources you would need to take you forward? What obstacles do you see in the way of progress? Remember that your mentor is talking from his or her own experience, right? They might be empathetic to your issues. They might be able to understand your issues. But even if the person has an understanding of your culture and background, they may not have experienced the same problems that you are experiencing, right? Everybody experiences Canada in a different way. They experience the Canadian workplace and culture in a different way, right? It's very subjective. So they may not really understand exactly what you're going through unless you can explain it to them, unless you can make them see it. So tell them what obstacles you think you can encounter if you're going to choose this particular option, right? What are the actions that you can take to achieve this? Let them know if you've been successful or unsuccessful. Don't worry about offending your mentor, right? If they suggest something and it's not working out for you, just let them know that it's not working out for you. Tell them why, right? And ask them if you can work around it, if you can do something else. So that's the end of my presentation. And I really hope that all of you have a very good mentoring partnership here in Canada. And I hope that you have a really good life here and a really good career here in this country as well. I'll stop the slide share now, and you can ask me any
Much,
questions.
Rebecca. We'll start taking questions now. So if you guys can start typing the questions into the questions tab, we can start taking them. So I'm going to go over here. Again, I'm going to take very short questions. If it's about the mentoring partnership, please give us a call at our closest office location, and somebody will be able to direct you to our TRIAC mentoring coach. And Are there any programs which help find a mentor, or is it a personal responsibility?
Yes, I mean, there are programs like with TRIAC, or you can ask Access about it, and you can have them assign a mentor to you. They will note your details down and they'll try to match you with a mentor. Alternatively, you can try to find mentors for yourself. Like if you're in university here, you're studying, or through LinkedIn, there are many consultants who are willing to take you on as a mentee. Some of them do it voluntarily, some of them they charge you a fee, so you can find mentors as well. You can also find mentors in associations, in your professional associations, whatever field you are in, you might be able to find them there, or at your workplace, at your religious establishment, at a church or synagogue, or wherever you're going for your worship services, you might be able to find mentors there. So there are many places where you can find mentors informally, and you have the formal mentoring partnerships through organizations like Access and Triad.
Thank you. Next question here is demanding behavior accepted in Canada?
Demanding behavior. Um, yeah, as I just told you, Canadians, by and large, the general rule of thumb is that they're very polite people, and although they value direct communication, they do not value demanding or even overly assertive behavior. You are expected to be polite, to maintain a relationship, to begin a relationship, to create rapport before you can ask somebody for a favor, right? So be direct in your communication, but do not make demands.
Thank you. And can you ask one of your LinkedIn connections if you can volunteer at their organization?
Yes, I mean, you can do that, but first you need to send them a LinkedIn request. And when you send a LinkedIn request, always send a message along with it saying that, you are so and so. Maybe you can say that you saw the person's talk or you saw their profile, and you would like to connect with them for this reason. And you look forward to learning from them, or whatever it is. Just send an introductory message along with your LinkedIn connection. Establish rapport first, and then slowly you can ask them if you can volunteer in the organization. Don't start off with saying, hey, can you take a look at my profile and I want to be a volunteer. Don't start off that way.
Thank you, Rebecca. And a lot of people are asking about the website you mentioned for culture differences. Could you share that again?
Sure, yeah, I can do that. That would be Hofstede. If you just going to put that here in the chat. I'm sending that to you. So if you Google Hofstede, you'll be able to get the website. I'm going to see if I can find it.
Maybe if you can share your screen as you're Googling it.
Okay. Just one moment.
So everyone who's asking about the recording, yes, you will get a recording maybe tomorrow, but the link that you used to join today, the Zoom link, it turns into a recording a few hours after the webinar. So you can go back to it and watch it again.
So this is, sorry, this is the website. It's Hofstede hyphen insights and country comparison. I hope you can see it. And you have the tool here, which is a free tool. So say you type in Canada, and then you can type in, say, China, and you have the comparison done here based on Hofstede's criteria. And then you can read up more about the cultures of the two countries in comparison. So that gives you a good idea about the cultural differences between the two countries based on Hofstede's criteria.
Thank
Can I
you.
stop sharing that? Yeah.
Thank you so much. And if someone has added someone on LinkedIn, can they just straight out approach them to meet up for a cup of coffee? Or would that make them uncomfortable?
Yes, that might make them a little uncomfortable. Um, you can maybe talk to them a little bit first and tell them a little bit more about yourself. Talk to them, see how it goes. And then, if things go well, after a few days of getting to know the person better, can maybe invite them out. Again, be mindful of the person's gender. They may, call asking somebody out for a cup of coffee. They should not take it, construe it as a date or something other than for a mentoring relationship, right? So just be mindful of those things.
Thank you. Where did it go? Okay, so okay, I think you answered that one there. Okay, so what if your mentoring relationship is not working out the way you thought it would? How do you end the relationship?
Well, you need to be direct with your mentor. Yes, Canadians value direct communication, as I told you. So tell them that you don't seem to be getting much out of the relationship,
Hmm.
and ask them if they can maybe refer you to somebody else. Or you can tell them that it's not working out for you and that you would like to end it. Maybe if you like the person and you become friends over time, you can maybe continue being friends, but you don't have to be in a mentoring partnership. Just be direct about that.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you so much for sharing all these words of wisdom with us today. We're very happy to have had you here. This does bring us to the end of our webinar. Is there anything that you'd like to add before I move forward to my slides?
No, I think I'm all done. I just want to wish good luck to all those who are listening here, and I hope you have a wonderful experience here in Canada moving forward.